Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Lone Wolf 902. Today's video, I'm out doing a solo hammock camp on the edge of a lake. And when I say the edge of a lake, I mean right on the edge of a lake. So I'm about 20-30 feet off the water's edge. I've got my hammock and tarp already set up, and it is raining off and on all day. So I have gone ahead with an open style porch set up for now, but as you can notice on both ends, the doors are already closed in. So later on this evening, this whole panel is going to drop and I'm going to close in both doors. Now I still have to get my underquilts on. I do have two synthetic underquilts with me today. One in camouflage, one in coyote tan. I'm trying to grab this out of here. So I've got two synthetic underquilts. I've got my hammock all set up. I've got my saw with me. I've got all my cook set and my food and everything else in my pack. I'm going to get this on there, and then I think after that is going to be a quick coffee break, because I do need coffee. It is quite chilly out, and it's not raining right now. I don't see any water hitting the lake, but it most likely is going to pick up again with some rain. So I'm going to get this squared away, and then get coffee on, and then it's going to be get some firewood. Okay guys, coffee is ready. I've got a nice, beautiful cup of hot coffee right in front of me. And I gotta say, today it's not that cold, but it is damp and it is kind of chilly. I'm actually gonna be taking off my wool sweater because it is warm and I want to keep it dry. But I do gotta say right now, out on this lake location, looking out at that water, that's gonna be my view all night and in the morning. So great view. But I do gotta say, a hot cup of coffee or a hot cup of tea on a day like this turns the day around completely. So I do have my little table set up here, and you guys know that I love bringing either this table or my other packable table when I'm in the hammock. They are so helpful. You can put it in the ground wherever. Now today I'm kind of limited to where I could put it because I do have large rocks in the ground, but I happen to find a soft spot right in between two, which is pretty much exactly where I want it anyways. So worked out really, really well. Now I do want to talk about a couple of things. It is raining off and on between making my coffee. The tarp is currently soaked, and I'm looking at my hammock strap, and about 2 inches from my drip lines, it is soaked, so that wetness is about to hit my drip line. Now, what are drip lines to those who don't hammock camp? A drip line is basically a piece of cordage that you tie around your hammock strap so that your strap that goes to the tree, you would basically tie on, it doesn't matter how long, as long as it's about 6 inches long. You basically just tie on a little loose knot on your hammock strap and let the two ends dangle, or one end dangle down. And what happens is, if this is your strap, the water will run down, it'll hit that piece of cordage, and it'll reroute the water and it'll drip down onto the ground. Now on a day like this where it's supposed to rain heavy, I don't know if it's actually going to, but on a day like this, on this side I currently have 1, 2, 3 individual drip lines, and then on that side I have one big one, and then I have the hammock strap. The tail end of it is actually about 1 foot long, so I just let that droop down. So when the water hits that, it'll drip down to the ground and not get my hammock wet. So you got to keep an eye on those and make sure they're actually working though. And then after you visually see, so I will be able to tell if mine's going to work properly in about a few minutes. But very important, put drip lines on your hammock. The other thing I want to talk about is Rusty. So if you guys are new to the channel, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Rusty is a little red squirrel that whenever I'm out in this area, he seems to find me no matter what. And I gotta say, he has been in my backpack at least 10 times so far. He's been inside of my hammock. Twice I had to shoo him out of my hammock. And he's a friendly little guy. I'm not worried about him destroying anything, but I don't want to happen to sit on him. He will sit right on my knee, guaranteed. If I sit here and I'm just lounging around, I don't make any big movements, he will literally perch on my knee and wait for food. Okay, so he's here. I don't know where he is, but he knocked my spoon out of my cup, and he's starting to become a nuisance. So I had to put some things away in my backpack and just kind of squirrel-proof the area. So now I'm just waiting for him to come back, and I do have treats for him. I brought peanuts and unsalted almonds, so I'll actually put them in the little tiny holes of the table, rest them there, and he can come up here, and that'll kind of give him an area to go instead of rooting through my backpack and in my hammock and all that stuff. That's a lot to say. So I'm going to enjoy my coffee, and then right after that, I do have my canister stove, so I don't need a fire for like warmth. I don't need a fire for cooking. I don't need a fire for anything other than my steaks. Now I know I just said I don't need it for cooking, but I don't have to have it. I did bring a titanium plate. If it rains hard, I could bring the canister stove underneath the tarp and cook my steaks in my pan, but I really, really want to cook my steaks over an open fire. So that's the plan. I'm going to probably choose a spot over there next to the kettle, somewhere in some rocks, and make a tiny little fire and get it cooked down to coals, get my grill over top, get the steaks on, and hopefully the rain will hold off long enough to actually get those cooked up and enjoy. So right now, like I said, a couple minutes, I'm going to sip on my coffee, and then I'm going to grab my saw and go collect a little bit of firewood. Okay guys, I got my firewood all prepped and cut, and I went ahead and made a little tiny fire ring out of rocks. Now this fire is just going to be for cooking, so I didn't want to go all out with the rocks, and these are wet and I don't need a big fire. I just need it big enough to get a coal base and then set my grill over top and cook my steaks. I did just reheat my coffee. It is getting quite chilly out, so I'm going to pour a cup of coffee here, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to explain what's going to happen here. For the fire, I brought flint and steel. I did not bring my fire steel. However, I do have a tiny fire steel on my food processing knife. But, as I mentioned in a previous video, if you can bring flint and steel and get a fire going with natural tinder on a day like this, where it's wet, it's damp out, your skills will improve dramatically. So, I'm going to be using flint and steel for this evening's fire. And hopefully everything will work out well. I typically practice flint and steel on nasty days like this just to ensure that my skill level stays up. And sometimes that boost of confidence can be more than skill. That having that confidence knowing that you can do something right away, you just jump into it and you start doing it with the expectation of it actually happening. And sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's not, but it happens. So flint and steel. Take a sip of this, see how hot it is. Perfect. All right, well, I'm actually just going to leave that right there. So, we've got dry wood, we've got wood shavings. So I got my little plate here, bunch of hardwood shavings I just cut up. I'm going to get some of the stuff out of the way, actually, because that's just going to bother me. So, with the flint and steel, if you guys don't know how to light fires with flint and steel, I may do a tutorial on it in the future. Basically, I have an old pellet tin with a little hole in the top of it. That's step one to flint and steel, other than the flint and the steel. Char cloth is what I use, so I'm going to be careful. There's drops of water dripping out of this tree. Inside of this tin, if you can see that, I have homemade char cloth, and I make my char cloth out of old t-shirts. So basically, you cut up little swatches of the t-shirt, put it in here, cotton t-shirt, put it in here with a little hole, screw it on and nice and tight, and you set that over top of the fire. You can set it on top of the canister stove. It works just as fine. So you kind of have to have fire to make fire using this method, but you could pre-make this. So tonight, if I needed more, which I do, but I don't have a t-shirt with me, I could put this over the fire and make more char cloth, and then I'd be good for the next trip. Hopefully there's enough in here to get this fire going. So the trick to this is keep everything dry, absolutely dry. So I'm actually just going to cover that because that is still dripping water up in the tree. So I've got my flint, I've got my steel. This is an old file. I can show you guys. A couple sparks there. So old file and a piece of flint. I have birch bark that I have in my pocket that has been drying out. Hopefully it's dry. It's still quite wet and quite damp, but it's much drier than the stuff that's just been sitting out. So put the birch bark in your pocket. As soon as you find it, put it in your pocket, and it'll be hopefully somewhat dry a couple hours later when you're ready to light your fire. So this has dried up quite a bit. Now I'm going to take a few pieces of hardwood, and I'm just going to make a base underneath of what I'm going to be lighting, because I don't want the fire to actually touch the wet ground. I want it to sit on top of a bed of dry wood. So generally thicker pieces of wood, so I'm not going to use like really small splintered pieces of kindling. I'm going to go for larger pieces, kind of like this, a larger piece of wood. Set that underneath and break this little piece off. Set that down, and then I've got a base where my stuff can sit on top of. So talking about the little kindling pieces, I'm going to select a few smaller pieces that I have cut here. And this is wood that I just gathered probably about an hour ago, so it has been out here in the rain overnight, massive rain, and it is quite wet, but the inside is dry, so we shouldn't have any issue with lighting the fire. Alright, I think that'll do. So, very important, what I'm going to do is take some of this wet birch bark, and I'm just going to make strips of it. Just kind of ball it up, toss it in the bottom. Doesn't have to be neat and pretty, because it's gonna go crazy really once it starts burning. It's just gonna go up in a big ball of flames. So I set those in there, and then I take my dry pieces of wood, and I like to kind of do like X's, little triangles and X's to kind of introduce more airflow, and then it kind of creates a spider web of wood where it's kind of crisscrossed and woven, and it gives it structure so it's not all just pressing down on that birch bark. I find this method works really well when it's wet. And I grew up on Vancouver Island, so if you're not familiar with Vancouver Island, it is basically a rainforest. It rains like crazy. And as a kid, I learned how to light fires on Vancouver Island with wet tinder and natural pieces of wood and whatnot. So for me, lighting fires in the wet and in the rain is not a problem. And I can't say that like being high on myself. What I mean is that I'm confident that I can do it. I'm confident because I've done it so many times. And going back to that confidence, sometimes that's all you need is a little bit of confidence to know that you can do it. And you're never going to learn unless you try. So I've got, oh, I almost forgot. I've got that. I'm going to take my plate of shavings and I'm going to just toss it underneath of all that wood that I made a spider web of. So now we've got a big tinder ball, essentially. Pop that off to the side. So we've got nice interwoven pieces, and I left a little mouth opening on this side. So when I get this going with the flint and steel, I'm going to feed it down into that hole, and then hopefully that'll go up. And I like the term set it and forget it. I want to set the fire, and I want to forget about it. I don't want to be poking and prodding at it. I just want to set it, forget it, because the wood is wet, and it does need to bake. It needs that time period to dry out. So you don't really want a massive spontaneous combustion, because once that happens, all of your tinder is going to burn up and you're going to be back at square one. So you do want it to slowly bake away, drying the wood and then combusting at the same time. So let's get into the flint and steel and start striking. All right, so first thing that you'll notice is I'm not wearing my gloves, okay? My gloves are soaking wet. Any kind of dampness you don't want, so you want to rule that out right away. So this is the driest piece of birch bark that I have, and hopefully this works. I'm going to only rough it up with about 2 or 3 scratches. That's it. I don't want it to catch fire right away. Like I said, I want it to slowly bake, and then it'll combust. And when it combusts, that means it's ready to burn because I had time to dry out. So I'm going to make a burrito out of this. Basically, I'm going to pinch it like that with the char cloth inside of there. And I'm going to get that out right now. Now, like I said, you do not want this to get wet, damp. There's no drops. I haven't felt anything in the last couple seconds. So hopefully, oh, there goes one. Hopefully we don't get dripped on here. There are 2 ways of doing this. You can hold it in your hand and strike it. Or if you have good enough aim, you can put your whole tin and then whatever amount that you need in there. So I'm just going to light all of it. I don't need to save any. But you can strike sparks into the tin and then pick it out, or you can do it in your hand. I'm going to do it in my hand because that's just the way I'm used to doing it. So I'm going to take half, leave the other half in there, and I'm doing that because if this disintegrates, I have another half to work with. And I like pinching it underneath of the flint and then striking, and you basically just strike and you kind of get lucky. A spark lands on it and then you go from there. First strike, it actually landed on it, but it went out. So let's just keep going. Another one landed and went out. That one went out. Okay, we got one right there. So I'm going to take the rest of it. You can see we got spark. I'm going to take the rest of it. I'm going to place it in with the other ball. Quickly get it into your burrito. Pinch it. And then, like I said, you don't want to blow very hard to make it burn. We want to bake it and then let it catch on its own. So you hear it snapping and crackling. Let it do its thing. Kind of get away from it just for a second. Don't blow on it too crazy. You can see a massive bubble on the outside. It's still heating. It's still smoking. Just had a flame there. Let that go out. Let it bake and snap and crackle a little bit. And this third one, I'm going to get a flame and then I'm going to place it into there. Move my stuff out of the way first. Deep breath. fire burns up, so I'm holding it down so the fire's going up. Get it into that birch bark, move the wood, set it, forget it. If you do have char cloth left over, get the lid back on it right away. And that is the set it and forget it method. Now I do have a gas canister over there. I'm going to move it out of the way just because I don't think it will cause any issue, but I don't know how big that birch bark's going to ball up to in a flame. And there you have flint and steel fire on a wet day with wet natural material. So that is very, very hot right now. That's telling me that the wood is pretty much ready to burn. It was very dry on the inside, I will say, this hardwood. This is maple, by the way, and it's dry. The outside is quite wet. There's a couple pieces that the wetness actually soaked pretty deep into it, but for the most part, it's fairly dry. So set it, forget it, don't go poking it, and just let it do its thing. Let all that burn, and it'll collapse in on itself. You'll have a coal bed, and then you start adding more pieces of your hardwood or softwood, whatever. I use the hardwood to start it because it is drier than the softwood. However, the softwood will burn out. It'll dry out quicker is what I'm trying to say. It'll dry out, it'll burn fast, and then you can kind of get more hardwood on there and then keep that cycle going. So I'm going to save this for cooking my steak because I don't want to cook over softwood. And that's flint and steel fire in a nutshell. Alright, so it looks like we're getting into last light right now. We got some beautiful golden light behind me and it's fading quickly, and I'm looking out right now across the lake and the whole sky is gray, but there are these big white puffy rain clouds just floating by. So this yellow hour is what I call it. Doesn't last long, so it's a good thing I got those steaks on there when I did, because I do have 2 more. I brought 4 in total. So I got 2 more steaks to put on the grill, plus I have my whole pan. I'm just looking at it right now. I got my pan full of mushrooms, yellow onion, and green onion, and some butter. I'm going to saute that as those 2 are done. Those 2 steaks are finished, that is. Bring it over here to my table, enjoy that, and then get 2 more steaks on there, and let them smoke and slow cook for a long time. And then hopefully some of these clouds out here will start popping, turning purple and pink. I don't know. I mean, it is overcast and gray, but I've had nights like this where sunsets came out of nowheres and I wasn't expecting it. So I don't know. We might get a great sunset. We might not, but that steak over there smells amazing. It is just distracting me right now. 2 steaks on there, almost done, and I'm starving, so I'm going to really enjoy that a lot. So other than that, I'm having a really, really great time. The water is still nice and still, and I think it's going to be a good, quiet night out here. Okay guys, supper is ready. These 2 steaks. Now I should say I brought 4 steaks. I got 2 more on the grill right now cooking. And I've got 2 in here with my vegetables. And I gotta say, this turned out amazing. So what I did right at the end of the vegetables is I took this vanilla oatmeal stout and I put a little splash of that in with the vegetables. Mixed it up. So right now I have like a beer broth in the bottom. It is so dark and so flavorful. And that steak, I took it off. I cooked it medium rare and I took it off. I let it rest. And just cutting into it, it's definitely medium rare. And it is just juicy. Just juicy. It is so good. Mmm. Oh yeah. Get some of these mushrooms and onions. Mmm. I always feel so bad for eating on camera because I always get comments of people saying, oh, now I'm hungry. Now I gotta go cook. And I'm telling you, something about cooking out over a fire, out in the woods. That's where it's at. And this steak is perfect. Now I'm trying not to cut hard so my knife hits the bottom of the pan. I'm getting pretty lucky here. Mmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Alright, so I'm going to enjoy my supper, and I'll bring you guys back as soon as I'm done. Alright, supper's all done. I pretty much got everything cleaned up. I just have to get everything put back into my backpack. Everything that was smelling of food has been either burned off, so I got my grill back here, which has been burned off. My spoon and fork has been burned off. My knife has been cleaned. My kettle has coffee grounds in it. I do have to empty that out still because animals will come to the scent of coffee. Other than that, I think everything looks pretty good. Now, we did get a bit of a sunset, and it's still happening right now, actually. A little bit of pinks and purples in the sky. It's still looking pretty nasty up there, though, so who knows? It might actually rain overnight, or it might actually rain tomorrow morning. But the hammock's looking really good. Got a great breeze coming through here, even though it is cold. It is kind of refreshing sitting next to the hot fire. So I think I might actually start poking around camp and looking for a few more pieces of firewood before it gets too dark, because I probably will sit here and enjoy the lakefront view that I have here for a little bit. Not too late, because I do want to be up early in the morning. But so far, everything's good. Supper was excellent, and everything almost cleaned up, getting there. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to get all this stuff tidied up because it's driving me a little nuts right now. I don't like having a mess at camp, so I'm going to tidy up a few things, get everything packed in my bag that's going in there, get organized for nightfall, get my headlamp, my flashlight, get all that stuff ready right where I need it, and then let the light fade. Alright, that's the last of the firewood that I've got for the night. I've got the hammock all closed up right now, so you can see that the one door flap is kind of flapping around. Everything's buttoned up other than that door. And I'm basically ready to turn in, so I've had a really great day so far. I got the sunset, so that was pretty cool. And I had my steak, really good. I'm stuffed and I am tired. So I'm going to put out my flashlight, headlamp, sit next to this fire for quite a while, maybe 30-40 minutes, and let it burn out. And then I'm going to be crawling inside of the hammock and dozing off because I want to be up early tomorrow. The sky is still grayed over, but there were patches, like right now I can still see patches of light through the sky where there's no clouds, so it might actually clear up tomorrow. I'm not totally sure, but anyways, I think that's what I'm going to do. I want to save my battery life on my lights, get those shut off, and then let this burn out, jump in the hammock, and I will see you guys in the morning. Good morning, guys. It is a beautiful morning today, looking out at the lake and the sunrise and that sunshine hitting my face, nice and warm, and it is chilly out today. So I've gone ahead and throw back the tarp to the hammock, open it up because we've got such a nice day today. Why not? And I've got my coffee. I've got something different for breakfast this morning. Today's actually Pop-Tarts. I didn't bring any oatmeal, so I wanted a real fast, simple snack. Now, I will say, I do have to watch out for these because Rusty is actually bouncing around here. He was just over on my backpack. I woke up to Rusty. Remember, Rusty's a little red squirrel that keeps pestering me. I woke up in the hammock to Rusty sitting right here on the table, staring at me in the hammock. It was kind of strange. It is what it is. I didn't have anything on the table, just him sitting on the table staring at me in the hammock. And thank God I had this zip shut, because I know if I didn't have that zip shut, he would have been in on top of my chest, most likely, staring at me. And that's not cool. So I do have my Pop-Tarts and my hot coffee. And like I said, he's around here somewheres. But what a nice morning. What a great morning. So yesterday was really cloudy and just overcast and rain, and it did rain again last night. Late last night it came down pretty heavy. I didn't have any water come underneath my hammock because, like I said, I got those drip lines set up and they worked really well. But I gotta say, it is just dead silent out here again, other than the wisping wind coming through. So very, very lucky with these locations that are just empty. There's no one out here. They're absolutely silent, and it's beautiful, beautiful. So I'm going to enjoy my morning coffee. Got a cloud jumping in front of the sun right now, and I think it probably is going to be a cloudy day. Actually, I don't imagine it's going to stay blue sky all day, but we'll see. But for now, I'm just going to sip on my coffee, enjoy my Pop-Tarts, and just take in nature. Alright guys, breakfast and coffee is all done. As you can see, my little squirrel friend's still running around, so I'm trying to get all my food and stuff kind of organized into one area so he stays out of it. But while I'm doing this, I want to mention last night it did get down to +2 degrees Celsius. Now that's just above freezing, and last night it did start raining again, but I could have swore I heard, and I looked out underneath of the tarp, I could have swore those were ice pellets hitting the tarp because it sounded like hard ice. And I didn't get out of the hammock, but I could just barely see underneath the tarp, and I'm pretty sure it was ice. So those two synthetic underquilts that I use, I was very, very warm. Plus I had my down top quilt on top, and I only slept in my black hoodie and a pair of lawn johns. So I did have a pair of sleep clothes, basically, a change of clothes. I use my wool sweater as a pillow, and I use my toque to kind of cover my face if I do find myself getting cold. But I stayed warm last night, almost too warm. I started sweating, and I had to kind of take the top quilt off and back up and off and on and so on. So it was very warm just with those two underquilts. So pretty stealthy looking setup. I'm really happy with that. The camo tarp, the camo underquilts, just everything kind of blends. So if you are looking for a stealth setup, that right there is a great stealth setup. If you pitch it really low to the ground, it makes for an excellent camp spot, or a camp system, so you can find a good camp spot and not be spotted and have everyone else find your camp areas. So that's kind of cool. But like I said, I'm just going to clean up all of my little small bits and pieces here, get it back into my canvas bag, and then I want to start tearing down the hammock. I just wanted to mention that now because I'm probably not going to mention it as I'm tearing it down. I'm just going to do a real quick pack up and get everything in the pack and go from there. Okay, so how I'm going to pack my hammock away today is basically how I pack it away every single time when I head home after a hammock trip. And that's literally jam the entire thing inside of the pack, no stuff sacks. I do have the stuff sacks in here from yesterday, but I'm not going to use them today. I'm just going to cram it in there because I have less food, I have less, well, I didn't have any water because I got it out of the lake, so I don't have any water bottles. But I have less food, and I did have quite a few food items, so that clears up a lot of space. And this stuff just jams right in there. So I got my cooking gear already down into the bottom, which is not a lot at all. I put all the heavy items at the bottom, and I'm just going to cram my top quilts in here first. Get those in there. And this is a 50-liter pack, so it's not a huge pack, but right there, I mean, you can see it's almost up to my shoulder of empty space. That's just with the underquilts and some spare clothes that are tucked in the underquilt. And then my down top quilt I'm going to leave inside of the hammock because it'll be easier to pack away. Jamming it inside of there is one piece. So I'm just going to place that in there. And then I want to get the hammock zipped up. I'm going to cram the whole hammock in there. And then the very last piece is going to be the tarp because it's wet. I'm actually going to roll it inside out and then place it on top here underneath of the hood of the pack, and everything will be snapped up nice and organized. Alright, so that is the entire hammock, top quilt, 2 synthetic underquilts, cooking utensils, cooking gear, everything inside of there. And you can see the collar of the pack. This is the hammock material. Like I said, my top quilt's still inside of my hammock. Now, you can see how that's automatically lofting back up, not even touching it. You can jam it back in there, let go, and it wants to loft again. This is why I use these size packs, 50, 65, 75. And I often get comments of people saying, geez, that's a huge pack, that must weigh a ton. It really doesn't at all. So the reason why I choose the large packs, the only thing that I have left to put in here is my tarp. And that tarp pack's about that round, that long. So the reason why I love using these packs, this is the smallest one that I have, a 50, is because you don't have to use the stuff sacks. Now I brought the stuff sacks in with me and everything packed neatly in there as it came off my shelf at home. And I did have food items and other items in here that took up more room. So having the stuff sacks coming in helps, but leaving them in the bottom of the pack and just simply jamming everything in there, pulling that drawstring shut, and then snapping it shut and letting that down loft, that insulation loft, and give that backpack proper form so it's not flopping around on your back. That is full, and I can pack more in there if I really needed to. So like I said, the only thing that I have extra is my saw, which I'm going to carry in hand. I can strap it to the side, and you know, I might do that. I might just pop this off and strap it on the side and see how well it rides. But I just got my tarp and my straps, that's it. So I'm going to put that on the outside. It's going to go right up here, and then I'm going to fold the hood over and strap it down so it's inside because it is still wet, and I don't really want to get everything else wet. But that's just a little tip there if you do have a pack and you're wondering, hey, how do you pack up so quickly in the rain or in the heavy winds or in the heavy wet snow? Whatever weather conditions, that's it right there, because I could have left the tarp closed and I could have went inside and did all of this and then come outside, grab that, throw it in here, off on the trail I go. So that's a really, really good, useful kind of tip that I use all the time. Maybe some of you could start doing that and it might help you guys out, I don't know, but that's my method. It works for me. Perfect. So I do got to get the tarp down. I got to get my guy lines all bound up nice and neatly so they're ready for next time. I'm going to do that and then I'll be right back. Okay guys, that is everything inside of the pack. It's probably pushing, I'd say about 20 pounds. About 20, maybe 25 pounds. 25 is on the heavy side. I wouldn't even go that far. I'd say probably about 20 pounds. Now I do still have my filming gear, which is on the tripod right now. The camera, microphone, tripod that I've got to carry in hand. But I do have my entire hammock set up. My saw did fit on the side. I've got all my guy lines. The only thing that's not in here right now is my ridge line, which is still hung, and my 2 tree straps, which are still up. I'm going to ball those up, and I'm going to put them on the outside pocket right where I've got my guy lines because they are still wet. and I want to put all my wet stuff on the outside so it has a chance to dry out. So if you guys have any questions about this video, please drop it down in the comment section and I'll get back to you guys as I always do. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So we touched on cooking. We did a little bit of cooking on the grill last night. I showed you guys flint and steel, which is an excellent thing that I think everyone should get into and learn, especially on rainy days. We touched on sleep system, so I showed you guys the sleep system. We touched on packing it away very quickly and efficiently. I think we touched on quite a few things for kind of a small location kind of camp. I didn't really go outside of camp very far. I just stayed right here and just enjoyed the water, the lake. And I had a great time just kind of being in one little area. So if you guys have any questions on this as well, drop it down in the comment section and I'll be sure to get back to you. One more thing, wax canvas. So in a previous video I mentioned that I am making my own wax canvas gear and I am offering it to those who are interested in it. I don't have any prices or anything picked out yet. I just want to touch basis that no, I have not forgot about it. No, I have not released them yet, and yes, I am still currently making. I'm building stock, basically. I'm building a whole bunch of stock on various items, so then when I do say, hey, it's available, I don't want to run out in a week and be like, sorry guys, I don't have any. So I'm currently building stock, and I am still waiting on hardware. So I'm still waiting on brass snaps, brass studs, leather labels. I'm still waiting on a few other things to finish these projects off, but when I'm finished with it, I will do an update video showing you guys what is available, how do you get it, so on and so forth. So that is still in the works. I have not forgot about it, but I do need to get going. I have to get these straps and ridgeline in the pack, and I've got a long hike out of here. The thing with coming to these locations that are so quiet and so peaceful is they are hard to get to. They're far. You really got to travel. So again, I have to hike around the backside of this lake all the way out to the side, and I actually got lucky. I was able to get my truck parked right on the edge of the lake way out there, so all I got to do is hike around to that spot. It's basically a boat launch, and jump in the truck, head home. So like I said, thank you for watching. I hope this helped you guys, and if you have any questions, drop it down in the comment section and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.